from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased joining me, Tory Bjorklund. He is a veteran, I would call, like technology expert that he's joining me today to talk about a lot of topics which are important, but I don't like to steal much from my guests when I introduce them. So Tory, the floor is yours. Please tell us a little more about, yourself, your background, your journey, at what you're currently up to, and then we can start the discussion from there. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Mehmet. I appreciate being on your podcast. I guess, as you mentioned, I'm a veteran of both manufacturing, software development, and consulting industries. I've been kind of on both sides of the table, so to speak, with consulting, as well as co-founding other companies. Kind of been a serial entrepreneur throughout my life. Currently working on my 7th company. And what the company is called Victoria Fide, which is Latin for success assurance. And the intent is really to help companies to prepare to succeed with digital transformation. And we can talk about the terrible statistics of failure with digital transformation and things like that. But that's the genesis of the book. As I say, I've been on both sides of that, both a CTO of a manufacturing company, a fintech company, CTO of a data company. So, and then, utilizing consultants in those positions was quite a frustrating experience. Then being on the other side of the table as a consultant, and working alongside other companies like IBM, for example, over the years, and watching these colossal failures happen, I decided that we really needed to change the way consulting is done. And that's the genesis for this company, Victoria Fide.
Great. And thank you again, Tory, for being here with me today. Because you mentioned about digital transformation and you've been in the industry for a long time, Tory, I would like to, with you, to walk people maybe through a history, let's say, right? But I'm a big believer that technology is a way to enhance business all the time.
Yes.
Now, from your perspective and being in the field for a long time, like, do you see, let's start from this. Historically, have you seen that really technology was a push for business to go forward? Or was it like the business was searching for certain solution and the tech happened to be that solution? I'm trying to see which one pushed more the other one.
Right.
Because I think this will lead us later to the digital transformation and all what happened later.
Yeah. So really, I believe that it's been, it depends on history. So there were times, for example, in the early 90s, and actually the late 80s, there was, and I was consulting, and I started my consulting company in 1987. So I've been doing this for a long time. And in the late 80s, there was a big push for just-in-time inventory and things like that. And so companies were really trying to improve in different ways. And then the massive push for process improvement and quality came in the 90s. And in both of those cases, it took technology to drive that, but there were really business decisions behind that, business objectives behind that. And the technology was just a tool to get there. It switched in the late 90s with the dot-com bubble. It was basically, hey, all I got to do is get this technology, get a website up and whatever. There was just so much focus on technology rather than the business benefit of that technology. And so then the technology became the tail wagging the dog, as it were. That kind of came back the other direction in the 2000s. But right now, with AI, for example, we're back in that cycle where businesses are saying, "Oh, what's our AI strategy? We need AI, AI." And before that, there was blockchain, and before that, it was cloud computing. We've got to get in the cloud. So the last really probably 10 years, there's been basically a push to have technology driving things rather than business need using technology.
I would like Tori to, deep dive into this, right?
Yeah,
And um, because you work in the manufacturing also as well. So,
yeah,
and I think, it was one of the first industries where, people started to say, hey, I need to digitize, my business. And enterprise resource planning solutions, ERPs, started to come into the picture as a first one. And when I prepared, I've seen, like you said, like 70% of these implementations fail. Um, what are like some what are some of the traps, I would say, that you've seen, like, organizations they fall into when they start this journey? What
yeah.
goes wrong usually, Tori?
Yeah, well, there's a few different things, but we already mentioned one, and that's what I call a technology first mentality. That's a trap. You need to have a business first technology. You have to have a business case. You have to focus on that business case and stay focused on that business case. Let the technology come as a purpose or as a tool to accomplish business purposes. The second thing that I see is people think of it as a technology implementation or a technology project. So they have IT driving it, which we're on the CTO show, right?
Yeah.
The technology, the chief technology officers really do want to drive the technology projects, but good CTOs and CIOs will really be aligning technology to the business objectives. But it really is not a technology project. So even if they're trying to accomplish a business objective, if you treat it as a technical initiative, it's going to fail. And then the third thing is really not preparing the organization for the change that is coming and why it needs to happen and what it's going to look like and the impact it's going to have on the on the jobs of the people and those sorts of things. So they really end up dealing with a lot of fear, uncertainty, and dread. And so that's really kind of the third thing is the lack of preparation. And then if they actually successfully get live, then there's a whole set of steps that they need to take to sustain the change to keep from people from just going back to what they've always done, but try to make the technology do what they've always done in the past rather than allowing it to transform the company. And so sustaining the change is another area of focus that needs to happen. So those are the four main mistakes that I see, and it really all kind of comes under the area of leadership. It's leaders not taking the role that they should be taking in the business leaders, the CEOs and COOs, and then CIOs and CTOs. Really taking that leadership role in the transformation.
Cool. Now, Tori, like, if they started from a wrong start, let's call
Yeah,
it this way, would there be still a way to fix things?
yeah,
Or
absolutely, yeah.
yeah, or if I want to ask the question different way, like, what are, like, some of the preparations that you advise leaders to do? Now, I'm not talking about only about digital transformation. You just also mentioned the AI transformation. So if I'm a business owner today and I want to take my company to the next level by you know adopting the latest and greatest, there must be, like, some homework that I have to do with my team. So if I started wrong, how I can shift back and go back to the right track.
Yeah. So that's really kind of two questions, right? How do you start
Yes.
right? And then what do you do if you've started wrong? And I'll start with how do you start right? And really the answer to that is to define what you're trying to accomplish from a business perspective and really business vision. And so it's a matter of what do you want your business to look like? What are you trying to accomplish? So, for example, if you're trying to scale, that's going to be a different kind of an approach than if you're trying to add a new sales channel, for example, or add a new set of products, or merge with another company. Mergers and acquisitions are a whole different approach than trying to scale through added sales. So you first need to say, what is our strategy? What's our business strategy and those business objectives, and make sure that your technology then is going to align with that. So that's how you start right. And then basically you need to put together a roadmap, a technology roadmap to align with that business roadmap. And that technology roadmap does take some technical expertise that you bring in or that you have in-house to address what technologies are we going to need to implement? How do we break those down into projects and some form of a project portfolio? Or hopefully, if you're more of an agile, scaled agile company, for example, you're looking at this as products and capabilities within the company. But once you build that technology roadmap to match your business roadmap, that's when you start getting into the execution. So don't start execution until you have a clear vision and a clear roadmap and the right people to execute on that roadmap. And that's really what all the preparation is about. Now, if you are in the middle, and we come in very often into the middle of some kind of let's say an ERP implementation. And, the original estimate was it's going to be, say 24 months and $1.5 million in revenue for a small company, let's say 200 million in top line revenue. And so they're doing this ERP implementation. And pretty soon, before you know it, they're $3 million into it. They're 3 years into it, and they're being told they're only halfway to the finish line. That at that point, something's come off the rails. You need to do something differently. You can't keep doing what you're doing. And really, the first thing to do is to stop what you're doing and assess where what's the root cause of these overruns, and really do a clear assessment and an honest assessment of where the problems lie and start again. And companies are really reluctant to do that, but it's really imperative to stop what you're doing and decide what you're going to do differently before you continue spending money.
Tori, I would ask a little bit a radical question. I would say, is there a point of no return? Like, have you seen any point where really things drifted so much that actually it can be fixed? And if we reach that phase, like really we are stuck, we can't do anything, or someone should take the responsibility as executive and say, hey guys, like we did something wrong, we need to revamp the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay. So my experience is that what I see is that it's not a drifting to a point of no return. In other words, it was always on the wrong track. It their process and systems were perfectly aligned to get them where they are, which is squarely in the ditch. And in those cases, yes, that there is a point where you have to pull the plug. But that's probably less than 30% of the time. I would say the majority of the time, you haven't reached that point of no return. And really what it comes down to is you have to look at what you're trying to accomplish and what the benefit to the company is. And then you have to look at what's the ROI on what you're going to do. So if you actually accomplish that and you've already invested, let's say in our scenario, you've already invested $3 million, is there any ROI left to be gained? And if there isn't, frankly, if what you're trying to do was an incremental change to your company, that's not going to have a significant change, a transformation of your company, and you've spent $3 million on it, it's not going to be worth spending another $3 million if you're not going to get a return on it, right? So at that point, you have reached the point of no return. But having honest numbers is the biggest difficulty that I see. Because really what happens is, in that scenario I was laying out, for example, and you say, we've already spent more than we originally anticipated, by 50% more. And now we're thinking we're going to spend another, the same amount again. There's a good chance that you're really only 20% complete, not 50% complete. And more often than not, what happens is people say, oh, we're almost there. We're 80% done. Well, okay, if I just spend a little bit more and get us over the hump, then that's fine. And you end up finding out that you're being told you're 80% done for another year. You've been a year over, and now you spend another year trying to get that last 20%, and you're still only 80% done according to the numbers that your team and the consultants are telling you. So that's the problem. Is it's like that the proverbial frog in the water, right? It's getting hotter and hotter, and you don't realize you aren't getting any closer to being done. And that's why you really have to stop what you're doing and decide to do something differently, or you will get to that point financially where there is no return. You just need to pull the plug and stop spending money.
Right. Now, of course, and the reason I, deep dive with you with all these problems and, their effect on the business is to try to see, how we can avoid or maybe solve this. And I know, like, you have developed what you call the process for transformational change. I
Yes,
want you, Tori, to walk us through this little bit.
sure.
And like, maybe there are some key pillars for that, maybe some of, the key things that you focus on in this
Yeah,
framework.
sure, absolutely. So basically, you take the framework, it's broken into three different stages, we call them. And those three stages is to prepare, and then execute, and then sustain. And I've mentioned the preparation and the sustain. Um, but in the prepare, basically what you need to do is make sure you've clearly defined what your objectives are, as we talked about, and that you've put together a clear roadmap of how you're going to get there, both from a business perspective as well as from a technology perspective. And you do really clear planning on your ROI, defining what your expectations actually are, and get a really solid budget around your spend, as well as projections around what the return is going to be on that. And what you have to do is clearly define what success looks like. So, for example, I've come into an ERP re-implementation, and their objective was simply to get accuracy in their inventory. Their inventory was never accurate, and they had 28,000 inventory adjustments in a 12-month period of time. And they wanted to fix that. So then every question we asked as we were going through the re-implementation was, what impact is this going to have on inventory accuracy? And anything else that people tried to put in, we just said, no, that's not part of the objective, what we're trying to accomplish. So you have to have really clear objectives. Not often, by the way, is it that targeted, but in some cases that is. And then part of the prepare is build. So you want to build your team. You want to, particularly building your team, which means clearly defining roles and responsibilities for the initiative. And the initiative may be multiple projects. It may be multiple years with multiple phases. But you want to clearly define what the project and portfolio looks like, what the phases are, and build the team and the responsibilities, clearly define those. And then finally, the enablement, you assess the team needs. Is there training and things that you need to do ahead of time to make sure that your team is going to be able to adequately execute? So that's the prepare, kind of the 4 steps to prepare. And then the execute, I don't need to talk a lot about that because really the execution is pretty mature in the industry and it's seldom the place where things fail. But we all know that an iterative, and slash agile. I'm a little cautious of using the agile terminology because implementations sometimes are a little bit difficult to adhere to the agile principles. But the values they can adhere to and use an iterative process that basically breaks down into 4 areas: assessing, design, creating, and then implementing. And you do that over and over again throughout that project. But then the initiative, which might be multiple projects. And then finally in the sustain, there's 3 areas of that, which is monitor, measure, and maintain. You want to make sure that, did we hit our objectives? For example, when you set up what success looks like, you need to have metrics for that you measure that. And then after the implementation, you say, have we hit those metrics? And if we haven't, what do we need to do to hit those metrics? And the other thing you want to monitor is make sure that people are adhering to the new processes. So process conformance is an important aspect of it. So those are things that you want to be measuring, monitoring, and then you want to do maintenance to continually update your processes as you improve on them, continually train people on the new processes and so forth. So, and then obviously maintaining the health of your system.
Tori, who owns this? I mean, who is in charge of this? Like, there must be someone
Yeah,
who take at least ownership of making sure that everything is placed.
That's a great question. And oftentimes what'll happen is somebody that in the C-suite, CEO or COO will turn to their, if they have a CIO or a CTO, they'll turn to them and say, hey, take this on. But oftentimes, particularly we're dealing with companies that are, say, less than 500 million in top line revenue. Oftentimes they don't even have somebody in the C-suite. And so they're talking to their director of IT or something like that and saying, hey, take this on and let us know when it's done. That's not the right approach. What it needs to really happen is you need to have a project sponsor that is at the C level, that understands the business strategy and can align everything to that business strategy. So my recommendation, generally speaking, is that you not have IT related people owning it, but that the project sponsor be operational, either the CEO or the COO. If you have a chief operating officer, I prefer to have them manage it and not the financial people, by the way. That's also oftentimes a recipe for failure. So not the CFO. Generally, CEO or COO would be my preference. But really good CIOs can handle that. It just depends whether they're technology first or business first CIO or CTO.
Cool. Now, another thing we hear a lot, Tori, is about, like digital transformation or any transformation. And I think the word transformation by itself is problematic, if you ask me, because people, they think transformation is a one-time task or a one-time project. From your experience, like how much this from lexicon perspective,
Yeah.
it gave people this impression that, yeah, okay, let's say I didn't have a CRM and ERP and now I'm done. Or for example, I move to the cloud, I'm done.
Right.
So you agree with me. So for how we can change this and
Yeah.
why it should be a continuous, you call it end-to-end transformation, and it's not like a one-time task or project or whatever.
Right. So that's one of the reasons why our process is not called the process for digital transformation. It's called the process for transformational change. And really, it's focusing on changing the organization and actually fostering a culture of change and a culture of improvement, and a culture of excellence. And so, really, what we try to focus on is helping a company and we say that we're preparing a company to succeed. And really what that looks like is building a culture that embraces change as a part of the DNA within the company. And the change, though, not for the sake of change, but change for the sake of becoming faster, better, smarter, or however you want to look at that. Right now, that's an imperative for success in business, right? The disruption index, if you look at that, it's on a logarithmic curve. I mean, it looks like the traditional hockey stick curve. I mean, it's just going soaring right now. And the disruption is amazing. So in order to survive in this environment, a company has to embrace the ability to be agile and change regularly. And so that's really, you have to look at it as a continuous process, not as an event. And what we tell companies is go live is really only the beginning of your journey. That is not the end of your journey. And it's really go live is just simply, okay, now we have the tools to be able to execute the transformation. Now the hard work begins of actually transforming the company.
Tori, you mentioned AI at the beginning. From your perspective, how much this like facilitated, made it easy, or made things more complex and more headache now for transformation in general?
Yeah.
Is like in another sense, the people are thinking like AI is the solution for everything, and this is it started to you mentioned like at the beginning also, but how it's affecting the real transformation? Is it making it really easy? It's like more headache because I need to do something else now. What are you seeing?
Yeah. So what I'm seeing is that it's making personal individual transformation easier, but enterprise transformation more difficult. So in other words, I use AI every day, pretty much all day long in all sorts of tasks, and it makes me a lot more efficient in that. But it's not industrialized. That's really not even tribal knowledge. It's personal knowledge that nobody else has access to. And I might maybe I'll silo it and help a few other people understand how I'm using the tools and so forth. But that is not going to help the company overall. But what's ended up happening is that because companies are looking at this as a technology first approach, what's our AI strategy, rather than saying, how can AI help our business strategy? It tends to actually be more difficult and more complex. And in fact, the statistics are bearing that out. IEEE magazine recently came out with an article that claimed that 95% of digital transformation initiatives fail. And I mean, it's just
Right.
it's getting crazy. And the reason is because people are focused on the technology rather than on the business.
I think I've seen something similar from McKinsey, if I'm not mistaken. Also, like 80% or something of AI initiatives, they are not seeing any ROI, and
Yeah. Yeah, I just came across. I'm trying to remember. Oh, it's MIT. MIT just came out with a study that was, again, basically 5% of the projects reach their ROI, their intended ROI, and so that's not even a good batting average. You want to get at least 30% if you're looking at a batting average. But yeah, so we really have to change the way we're doing this, and that's what I really believe, that consultants aren't helping in the industry. That what needs to happen is consultants and companies. I mean, consultants aren't going to change as long as companies are willing to pay them big dollars per hour to put butts in seats and whatnot. They're not going to change. But really, what needs to happen is companies need to say, "Hey, I'm going to pay you based on the value that you bring to my company,"
Mm,
and get either and like for us with our company, what we do is we have a lot of fixed cost services that we provide, and we come in and we look at it and we say, well, we think that this can bring this value to you, and we'll give you a guarantee that you'll see this value, and otherwise we'll keep working until you do see that value. and,
I think,
on a fixed cost.
yeah, I think I'm seeing like many people talking about this, especially, with the move of, even from licensing perspective. So people were saying, okay, we've paid like for cloud services, SaaS, and all this. We're not seeing. So there are a lot of talk now about how even, the whole technology industry might shift to this value-based pricing.
Hmm.
Like I save you this, you pay me, let's say 10%, 20%, whatever. And, because otherwise I'm not seeing any real ROI, quote unquote, of course, as
Right.
we used to explain to before.
It
Um,
That's
yeah,
difficult.
please.
It's a difficult model to execute.
Yeah,
But I used to see a lot of consultants do it in the 90s, particularly process improvement consultants, because what they would do is come in and do an assessment of the current efficiencies, and then get an agreement of the company that that truly is their efficiencies and what their costs are involved with that. And then they say, okay, I'll help you execute. And then for every, all the efficiencies that you gain, I get a percentage of that. Um, and so, over a year or something like that. And that's a fair way to go. For example, if you could increase your efficiency by 30%, you would gladly give 5% of that or 10% of that away to get, instead of 30%, a 20% increase. It's still a significant increase.
absolutely. Now, in these times, from your perspective, Tori, what kind of alignment should happen between CTO, CIO, whoever is in charge, and the rest of the executive team, mainly the CEO, also maybe the COO, the chief operating officer?
Yeah.
What kind of alignment, like what kind of communication should be happening now?
Yeah, I think that first of all, the uh, CIO or CTO really needs to be in on the business strategy. They have to be fully aligned with the business strategy, and then simply every conversation with the rest of the C-suite should be on, here is how I believe the use of technology will help us accomplish the strategy, but all measurement, every measurement then goes back to the accomplishing of the strategy. Now, sometimes one of the things that happens is you find out that your strategy is not actually a good business strategy. Sometimes that happens, right? But that way, it's not a failure if you actually implement on it from a technology perspective. If you put in technology that helps accomplish the strategy, but that doesn't bring the added revenues or whatever the case is that was intended, it's not on the technology at that point. But if it is a good strategy, then the important part is that you're always measuring against the business strategy. And
Right.
basically, CIO, CTO, they need to be able to speak that strategy. They need to be able to hold their team accountable to that strategy, and then also hold the other C-suite to that strategy. Whoever is the sponsor of the initiative needs to hold everybody accountable to the actual execution of the business strategy itself.
Right. It's like, because at the end of the day, it's a partnership between all parties actually, and everyone
Yeah.
on the board. So that makes a lot of sense. Um, Beside AI, Tori, like any other technology you are bullish on these days, like, and you're seeing like really it might be kind of relief, at least, for organizations, or maybe it's gonna take businesses to the next level that you are excited about now?
Well, this is going to kind of sound a little bit old school, but I'll tell you what we see is not that many companies, surprisingly few companies, are taking advantage of the tools that are available um, from business planning perspective, forecasting, supply chain management, MRP, and actually every company of a decent size has implemented an ERP system, and yet they are not, ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. They are not actually using the planning tools in a way that brings the advantage that they should have. It's surprising to me. And so frankly, instead of focusing on the next level of technology, which is probably existing already in their ERP system, they should focus on how can we take advantage of the tools that we already have to leverage those tools in a way that make us more efficient and more effective. Particularly if you're in uh, manufacturing, distribution, logistics. Uh, you don't need the next best thing. You really need to take advantage of everything you have.
Um, sometimes people they get surprised when they ask me, for example, about what's exciting in AI.
Yeah,
And I answer them, and I consider myself maybe old school as well, because I tell them, guys, back to basics. You
right.
know, technology is always a tool that we use to solve business problems.
Yeah,
And I'm only excited about anything that cut costs,
yep,
increase revenue, enhance user experience, or it reduce risks, right? In general.
right.
So it doesn't matter what is it, right?
Yeah,
You want
and
to do
well,
something.
and integrated business planning is a really great way to cut costs and increase efficiencies. But let's not get this wrong. AI does have the capability to be a game changer. The thing is, it's not easy to make that happen. Um, and if you aren't already using the tools well that already exist, like I mentioned, forecasting and material requirements, capacity planning, those kinds of things. If you're not using those already, AI is not going to be as helpful to you. On the other hand, if you are using those and you've been gathering data because you've been using them, you'll have decent data that you can utilize. AI can really be a game changer then in those cases for you. And particularly if you're manufacturer industrial AI, which everybody's focused on kind of the generative AI, which is already a game changer, particularly for marketing and some of these other administrative areas. Um, but as far as industrial AI and agentic, the use of multiple agents within a workflow across the factory floor, for example, man, that can really, really be game changing. But most companies aren't in a position to actually be able to utilize that because they haven't utilized the technology that they already have.
I can't agree more. I've seen it many times in different verticals also as well. So the things are there, but no one is using it to the maximum capacity.
Right.
Absolutely. Tori, like I know you're preparing for a book. Tell me a little bit more about it.
Sure. The book is called the Digital Transformation Guidebook. And the idea of that is it's targeted to non-technical leadership that will be really the ideal candidate for being a digital transformation champion within the company, and generally targeting the C-suite. And in essence, I break down that process that we have of prepare, execute, and sustain. But I do it in a metaphor of a journey, and basically, how do you prepare for the trip? How do you prepare the route? How do you navigate hurricanes that you encounter and things like that? So using that analogy of a journey, I walk the executive through the process of how to lead a transformation, a digital transformation for your company. Where to get involved, how to get involved, where to leave it to the technical experts, and so forth. I've turned in the first draft to my publisher, but there's a lot of editing at that point. I'm not good. This is my first book, so I'm not good enough to write it without a need for a lot of editing. So we're working on the editing right now. And but my we do have a pre-sale going on right now as well, and so people could sign up for the book and join me then for the launch when it does get released. We're going
Sure.
to have a launch party Two of them actually, a virtual one, and then one, I'm in Minneapolis area, so in Minneapolis, Minnesota as well. And then people that sign up now can get a signed copy of the book.
Cool. Of course, I will make sure to put all these details in the show notes if people are tuning using their favorite podcasting app. And of
Great.
course, if they are watching on YouTube, they will listen to it. Final thing, Tori, which I ask all my guests, where people can get in touch and follow maybe your work also as well.
Yeah. So the easiest way to reach me is with my business website, which is victoriafide.com. So that's Victoria, like the name, FIDE.com. And you can reach me through there. There's also torybjorklund.com. That's a little harder because nobody knows how to spell it. But
We'll make it easy.
yeah. And then I'm at Tory Bjorklund and LinkedIn and all, basically all of the social media.
Cool. Tori, like really, I enjoyed the discussion. It's very important because, people, like any other topic that comes with a lot of hype, people who claims they know what they're doing, things goes south, as we say, goes
Yeah.
wrong. And, I felt like when we talked, of course, before, and you reached out to me, is that we need this voice of wisdom which you conveyed today, that we need to be again to sanity when it comes to transformation, whether it's digital transformation, AI transformation. I'm sure, like, in if we talk in a couple of years, we're gonna talk about maybe quantum transformation. I don't know, right?
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, back to basics. And again, I want to highlight something you mentioned. It's not like about being old school or new school. It's about, following common sense and following what we always have done, whether with technology or without technology, to grow businesses and take it to the next level. So thank you very much for this, you know, great insights that you shared today. And as I said, like the links that Tori mentioned will be available in the show notes. And this is for the audience. If you just discovered our podcast, thank you for passing by. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did so, give me a favor, subscribe and share it with your friends and colleagues. And if you are one of the people who keeps coming again and again, I can't thank you enough for all the support, all what you do for the podcast. Really, I'm humbled, honored by what's happening, especially the whole year. We are almost now, we recorded late October. Probably I'm airing this in November, beginning of November. But since Feb this year, the podcast is doing fantastically well in multiple countries, on the top 200 podcast charts, on Apple podcast charts. Can't happen without you, the people who tune in and follow and listen. So thank you very, very much. And thank you again for the support on the book launch, From Nowhere to Next, which is available also on Amazon. And as I say always, stay tuned for a new episode very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.